Welcome to the Made Together podcast, the engine behind modern game development. I'm Sam Carlisle, co-founder of XGS Spark, and joined by Carla Rylance, chair of the XGS Advisory Committee, head of programming at XGS, and head of business solutions at XGS Spark. So every other Thursday, we break down how it works, doing it well, what it takes to create games together. Welcome, Carla.
Hey, how's it going, Sam?
Hot. That's how I describe it.
It's quite warm here as well. It's still really early here. It's about 7 a.m. I'm in my basement. My basement is freezing all the time. We've
Oh,
had
you know,
lovely
look.
weather. It's been very pleasant, especially with the World Cup on here. It's been a great
Yeah,
atmosphere and
yeah,
sunny days, and everyone's outside and all in good moods. It's fun.
I can imagine. I've got
Mhm.
this. My room's got two big windows. You can see them on either side, and it just slowly cooks. And so I find it best if I get in there when it's not too bad and then don't leave. So the temperature gradually creeps up on me. Because if I just walk straight into it, it's like stepping off the plane on holiday. Right? You can
Oh
see
yeah.
that wall. So
So
I'm
just slowly being baked.
slowly boiling alive is the way to go. Just watch my mood gradually slide down. It- It's
Oh
yes.
man.
And this is
You
going to
went.
be the mildest day heat wise for the rest of this week. This is the good day. Tomorrow it goes nuts.
Oh no.
Oh, we'll
Then you'll
see.
be crispy, not just
Yeah,
boiled.
you don't live in England for the summers, for goodness sakes. I expect it to be cool. But what are we gonna do?
Oh
No,
man.
I'd be complaining if it was any different, right?
You
So,
would, it's so true. That's the fun about the English weather, you can complain about it no matter what it's like.
yeah, there's very little spaces whereby it's okay. Well, officially, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been a it's been another newsy couple of weeks, and
Yeah,
it
very
feels
newsy.
I
I like
quite
that
like the news
term.
to be a bit more positively bent than it is right now. It still skews to the
Yes.
shocks and the aftershocks.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, well, what some of the news that came out over this past few days is obviously more industry layoffs, which is very disheartening and sad, and we feel awful for everyone involved. We had Ubisoft, they closed a studio and maybe had layoffs at another studio.
yeah,
And
we have
then,
Winnipeg.
yeah, and then we had Carlisle as well in Leamington Spa. And that was really sad. As well as some others, I believe, as well. And then also Xbox are reportedly planning some layoffs or like an Xbox reset. Not quite sure entirely what that means yet.
No, it's just
Um,
coming through in drips and drabs of rumor at the moment. It's funny enough, it's
mm,
just what happened last year as well. Just
is it
before
about
de
the same time?
yeah, I seem to remember just before Develop in Brighton last year, there was a kind of feeling that, hey, the mood switched, the industry's recovering, and then there was a round of Xbox layoffs then as well, just before, and it kind of shook the foundations again. And this time around, I think maybe last time around it was when the initiative was shuttered and the projects were cancelled. Um, and so, yeah, I think it did see well, one, it's getting towards the end of Microsoft's fiscal year, so that this is where they tend to get gathered. This is where they tend to get gathered. But this time around, I think there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of talking about who's on the chopping block, which studios are in danger. There's not a single studio. There's not a single weak link in here. Like when we looked at like last year with Perfect Dark, we were a long way with Initiative. We were still a long way away from seeing an actual product in there. Right, there'd been some things released. It had been bubbling away for a long time. The same thing could be argued for Everwild. Like that had been in work forever, right?
Yeah.
Um, and there wasn't a game out. There wasn't product. This time round, you're looking at Compulsion Games, and Compulsion Games released an award-winning product. So we know how great the studio is. We know how great the product itself is. The same thing with Ninja Theory, and obviously with Double Fine and the rest. These are track record products that we know they're
Yeah, they're
uh,
well-known names.
yeah, and they're wonderful,
Really,
wonderful
like,
games.
yeah.
So this is why I think the talk obviously is a lot more about how do you spin off, like how do they survive outside of that?
Mhm.
But again, it's interesting that this is not when I'm trying to think it from an external dev angle, this is not a downsizing, right? This is not saying, look, we're going to be smaller or we're putting a halt on growth or anything like that. And we're going to shift to this more external dev led model or smaller studio model. This is shut down. Like this is kill the studio or let the studio go out into the wild and find new owners. So it's not signaling a shift towards more externally led games, it's signaling a shift to just downsizing, to focusing
Mhm.
on titles.
Yeah, that's true. It could be a shift to focusing on more well-established titles that they have a good track record and they know is makes money consistently. Maybe it's live stuff they're prioritizing more than anything, which does have quite a
Yeah,
lot of external development. Um, but yeah, it sounds as if it's projects that are just being closed off. Maybe they get to a green light and it's like the risk is higher than the reward right now, has to be shut down. Like, who knows? We all know that that developers can be quite risk averse right now. So it could be something along those lines.
and you can see why, right? And I just wonder if it's a level, like, if you think someone like Compulsion, they may well make enough money to keep a studio like Compulsion independent and running and turning over and making great games, but they don't make enough to push the level that Xbox wants. And originally, Xbox didn't want that level. Originally, Xbox just wanted titles that were great and fun and were really grabbed your attention for Game Pass to be part of the Game Pass
Yeah.
proposition. And that seems to have that's stepping aside now to no, we need the big hitters that are really going to make the money rather than great games that maybe don't make huge amounts of money, but add an awful lot to the offering.
And it could be. Then you also look at um, games that were released recently. Have you seen Mecha Chameleon?
I've I've not played it, I've seen it. I mean, it does look like tons of fun.
It's really fun. I watched a bunch of streams this weekend and it is really, really fun. I can see why people are spending 3 or 4 hours at a time in there, which is great. And from what I've read, it's a solo dev. I think it took
Yeah.
2 months to make.
Jeez,
Yeah, I know. And I think it's been downloaded 6 million times now.
that's crazy. They just hit
Yeah,
upon a fun idea.
I know.
How
It's
often are
really
like
fun.
so this is hide and seek, right, isn't it? That's what it
Yeah.
is. This is hide and seek.
Yep. So you are like a character. You look like a blank canvas. You find a hiding space in these kind of like abstract rooms. It could be
Mhm.
like a candy land or like a police unit, and you find a place and you hide yourself, but then you paint yourself like the background. And people have to come and find you, and if they find you, they get you with a paintball gun, and then you become one of the hunters, and you go and find the others that are hiding, and then either the hunters win or the hiders win. It's really fun, it's really replayable, it's really watchable because
Ah,
you've
that'll
got
do it.
that suspense and excitement and hilarious moments and things like this, so it's really well done. And, yeah, that apparently solo dev, apparently gonna be releasing more maps and quality of life updates and all of this kind of stuff, so it seems something that's kind of manageable by a really small team,
Yeah.
but could become something much more, um,
Well,
if more got put into it. I wonder, like, these small teams, whether they will be investing in external development at some point, these ones that have found big hits and, have limited internal capacity, will they start to explore external
might
development,
do.
you know?
I mean, you have a huge influx of money. My hope is that these are the people who turn out to be the more altruistic investors in game dev. These are the people that help. Some of the we talk about the experienced teams have been laid off and trying to find backing. Well, I think I kind of hope that some of this backing might come from small teams that have a breakout hit, and suddenly like the Pal World and the rest. I believe the Pal World team they're investing in independent games as well, and if they're the ones who can then start investing back because they're not looking for silly returns, or just they're looking to grow the ecosystem, they could be a great source of some of the revival that we might see from these wonderful teams that unfortunately have been laid off. So
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. I hope so. It's amazing how many of these games as well are kind of the traditional. Like these are kids' games. Like this is hide and seek, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Among
that's
Us
true.
is a version of Traitors, really is a version of that kind of,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
murder mystery thing. There's probably quite a few more just I think what maybe British Bulldog, that was one of the ones we played in
Oh,
this we had a
yeah,
lot. There's probably a version of that that you can do on as a
there
game
must
where
be. There must be. Oh, yeah. Okay, we need to make one, Sam.
well, I mean, you think Tag is or Tig is the it's gotta be it's the most obvious one. It's all my boy
Yes.
plays all the time.
Oh, yeah, and it's fun.
There's enough there's plenty of games where you're being chased, so I'm guessing that's that's a
Yeah,
pretty well
most
mined.
guns.
That's the fighting back. Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, so interesting landscape right now. We'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks, what happens with Xbox, what new cool indie stuff comes out that blows everything out of the water and gets people talking.
A few people
Seems to
going
be
again.
happening quite a lot this cycle.
Yeah. So right now, it's just the hope that the Ninja Theories and the Double Fines and Compulsions find that backer, find that or management buyout, whatever it is that allows them to keep going. Because this de-risking, I don't know. I feel like it's going to bite in the end. I don't know. I don't know. Like we had this conversation a little bit ago when we were talking about AI. Funnily enough, that I'm waiting for somebody to say that the way we turn around this ship is just massively increasing quality. Like
Yeah. Mhm.
not
Yeah.
not by massively lowering risk or massively reducing our bets or investment, but no, what we're going to do is the quality is going to go through the roof, and that's how we're going to win people back. But I don't see that messaging. I don't see that kind of oh, it's going to be sheer quality. It's going to be sheer how immensely great these products are that is going to get us through this phase. That's not the angle to go. The angle is right now is we are going to reduce costs right down. We're going to concentrate on proven revenue generators, and we're going to stay in those lanes, really. Which
Mhm.
okay, but kind of boring.
Mm. And then like maybe we'll start to see innovation from other areas, like some of the indies we're seeing, and maybe. I mean, there's a lot of excitement coming
It
from
is,
those areas. That's for sure.
yeah.
A lot of talk, and I love it. I love seeing these new games that are coming out by these small devs and how
You
fun they
haven't.
are, how funny they are, and
Uh,
yeah, they're great. It's stuff that I like watching.
okay,
I love
all right.
it. Um. Also, I thought it would be really cool to discuss some of the things that I've been hearing and seeing throughout the industry. I've been talking to quite a lot of service providers, and there's quite a lot of them out there who describe themselves as like startup or bootstrap or still kind of coming into themselves and trying to figure out where they are in the landscape, how they do business development when they are small and they are starting out with a limited budget and a limited network and wanting to know how they can do their best and get more business and all of this kind of stuff. And it made me think, oh, this would be a great subject to have a little chat about
Yeah,
and see if there's any insights we can gather, or whether there's anything from the community that they're like, oh, I really think this would be great to share and give advice on. Um, but yeah, I was looking at the XDS Insights report as well and looking at like, okay, if you are a company that's starting out and you don't have many resources, but you do want to find great um, partnerships in external
well,
development, like as usual, the number one place with developers right now is industry events and conferences. That is the main place that most developers find most of their external partners. But obviously, when you're a bootstrap company, it can be kind of challenging to be able to go to these
Yeah,
conferences, right?
it's it's really expensive, and I'm saying that I'm coming off the back of 3 conferences in the space of the last month that I've been to, 2 Poland, 1 Croatia.
Mhm.
Um, all of them were small. Well, Digital Dragons was a mid-size, conference. Actually, that's maybe being actually, no, a good size conference. DevGam was a small one, and, Expo Gamer in Croatia was a small one as well, and there are a lot of the small conferences around at the moment, and it's still expensive one way or another to go out and do those things. It's still the level of activity you get on the B2B can be tricky, but they're good sessions and there's good ways of networking in there. There's good ways of learning in there. Um, but the circuit itself, to if you are a new supplier, and God knows I wouldn't want to be a new supplier at the moment. It's tough, right? It's just its own version of everybody's employment problem right now, which is there's a lot of experienced people who haven't got work. Right? There's a lot of experienced suppliers who haven't got work or have got certainly got capacity, right? And so to enter into that market is just like someone coming straight out of college entering into the games dev market right now. It's tough. It's really difficult. And so it's, but it also means you've got to, with the conferences, the problem with the conferences is that you've got to put the miles in. Like you've got to put the shoe leather in for that. Your first round of going around the conferences and everything is just understanding how they work, meeting
Oh,
those
yeah.
first few people, meeting those, getting your face out there. It's the second time around that you might start to get traction. You're looking like it's a year before you really kick on, before you really start to see the benefit, and that's a long time in a startup life.
Like, the first time you go to a conference, it's so, like, the first time you ever go to DICE, it's about, like, figuring out where everything is, figuring
Yeah.
out where people go to do the meetings, where people go to do the ad hoc things, where people socialize in the evenings, what the calendar looks like, and where to catch people, and it's, that first year is where you start to go, "Oh, I now I understand this conference. I
Yeah.
feel like next time I come, I can actually be really productive." And
Yeah.
so that first year at that conference is you have to do it to get to get to know the lay of the land, but the next years it becomes much more easy. Then I also feel like if you're a service provider, it's really important to have traction at the conferences throughout the year as well. And um, people start to create relationships with people that they see more regularly,
Mhm.
and they start to put a name to the name of the brand to the face of the person and the relationship that they have with that person. And the more they see you at these conferences, the more of a stronger connection they're going to make with you. And the more you are going to be top of mind for them when they have to build a shortlist for an upcoming project. So I think like having recurring visibility on the conference circuit is quite important.
Yeah. I think it absolutely is. Yeah, I mean, you gotta pick your battles, right? So if you can go local, go local. I mean, I did 3 conferences in a month, partly because they were cheap conferences to get out to as well, right? If I'm in
Yeah.
Europe, like the airfare was under
Was it
£100.
like 3 quid for you to get there or something?
Going out to Poland, I could get out to Poland, I think, for £70, so what, 110, something like that,
Yeah.
if you can get in there early enough. It's But at least it puts you out there, it gets you used to it. It also gets you used, there's a little bit of it, there's a bit of trauma, like a bit of childhood. You go somewhere and you're the odd person out. There's that first time you go on those kind of circuits, to those kind of conferences, you're not, you don't know people there and you don't know how it works. So you find yourself sitting on the sideline, resurface all of those like last to be picked kind of vibes that you get at school, that kind of feeling. It can feel awkward. So you have to kind of get comfortable, unless you're just naturally insanely gregarious, can put yourself out into any group. You have to get comfortable to having those feelings again, to be managing them.
Yeah, 100%. It can be
Um,
really nerve-wracking.
yeah.
The more you do it, the easier it gets as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a learned skill, like anything else. It's a learned skill, but it's a tough environment. I had a call with a friend of mine at a, who founded a supplier out to an art studio and a co-dev studio called Onyx. Bosco, lovely guy, and he put it in the most succinct terms that I've heard so far about what's up with the industry if you're a supplier and what makes it hard. He said, "It's a buyer's market, and the buyers have no money." It's like, "Yep,
Love it, but it's sad.
I think you're right. The buyer's market, and the buyers have no money." And so that's a tough place to operate, right? Especially if we're going
Yeah,
into
100%. Well, yeah, I think I understand that conferences is hard when it comes to being a new startup company, but I do think it is the main way that developers do find most of their external partners. That's the math behind it. That's the data behind it. And as Sam says, like having like Europe representation is kind of cool because the travel is reasonably well
Mm,
priced
yeah,
around there. You can get around pretty easily. Then there's a lot of like North American conferences, which I think the flights aren't quite as cheap as European flights,
yeah,
but there's a lot going on there as well. So I think like exploring like some kind of global representation is an interesting way of maybe thinking about it. If you're in a place that's not in either of those regions, like maybe exploring that as an option, something flexible, could be a good way of you um, finding ways of getting represented in those regions without having to travel yourselves. Um,
and
I
making sure
thought,
you budgeted
oh
for it as well. I mean, just
oh
make
yeah,
sure
100%.
that you know how that this is gonna be a cost you're gonna have to swallow. Um,
Mm,
as part of your
mhm.
as much as it's part of your equipment cost, as much as it's part of your salaries, it's your biz dev. It's gonna be everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. Making sure it's in your budget. I think that's smart. Definitely. I think it has to be it can be, just part of your operational costs, and I think if you do, I think, I don't think you'd regret it. I think you'd get to meet so many great people, you'd create some pretty good leads, and, the conference circuit's really fun, loads of great people. Um, yeah, I think it's definitely something you should consider if you're one of these service providers. Um I think it's also interesting how, like, I'm looking at the data for cold calling because this is obviously something that people do explore as like a first option if they have limited budget, but they are trying to um um get more clients or create more connections. Right now, there aren't that many developers that find partners through cold calling. Like if you look at industry conferences, it's at almost like 80%, which is the majority of developers.
That's huge.
If you look at cold calling, it's 30 30 to 35%, which is actually more than I was expecting. I was expecting it to be less than that. I mean, in the previous year, it was just over 20%. So there has actually been a little bit of an increase in the amount of
Success.
developer yeah, the amount of success. But then I also look at the data over a bunch of the different ways that people can do business development. And there's actually been an increase in quite a lot of different ways that you can do business development. Like, for example, if you look at portfolio and marketplace platforms, like Spark comes to mind, for example, like the increase in that is around 20% from the previous year.
That's a
So
big
it
one.
sounds as though like there's actually a little bit of a diversification in how business development is being conducted and how developers are finding external partners and how that different outreach converts, which is kind of interesting. Maybe developers are trying to like broaden how they're finding external partners. Um, yeah,
I
it's
I
interesting.
think they probably are. I think because like, their budgets are squeezed, right? And then you know that you just have to go to the conferences to see that the number of developers that are at the conferences is shrinking year and year, and it's getting they are getting fewer and harder to find. Um, but also, I think it's no one. Well, maybe conferences aside, but even with conferences, it's not let's say one method is king because
Mhm.
the reason why it's certainly as a buyer myself. a lot of it was a combination. I could
Yeah.
be it could be 10% they were in my database, 60% they were, I ran into them at a conference recently, 5% somebody mentioned them such as, "Oh, I saw something on ArtStation," or "I saw something that caught my eye, and that put me in mind." So it's a combination of different things that come together at that moment when the buyer just happens to be in looking for suppliers and going, "Oh, yeah, I remember so and so." And they're put in there. And that's all you're trying to do is just be in mind when they start to make that decision to have a reason for them to think of you, or to have a
Yeah.
reason for them to have been tracking you or keeping an eye on you or whatever it was. And there were always tiers to the suppliers that I looked at. Certainly at Xbox, there was the easy hits, right? The ones that were established, the ones that you went to and you knew, and they were, and the big thing, obviously, for the big companies was they were already onboarded.
Yeah.
The display and getting them up and running and started wasn't a hassle, and they felt much more pre-approved, so it was easier to put them forward. But there was always a tier in there that was, um, promising, like the ones I liked,
Mm.
the ones that
Yeah.
the ones I'd been keeping an eye on and was looking for a reason to put forward, and you would throw them into the mix regardless. Like, it would be there, you'd
Yes.
have your established, then you'd have your, "Yes, we've worked with them once or twice, and it's not so bad," and then you'd have your, "Oh, and just take a look at these guys, like, take a look at this studio here."
Yeah,
And
100%. Same on my side. I would have my old faithfuls. I would have ones that we've maybe used a few times and they're doing pretty well. And then there'd be ones that be like, I really want to try these people out. I want to find the opportunity for these guys because they seem like a great team. They've got
yeah.
great skill sets. They've got good production processes. They seem to have all of the ingredients that could make a really good partnership for the right kind of project. I had the same thing too.
Yeah, and it's funny, and a lot of it is sheer dumb luck. It can be just it's pure timing, right? Pure there was one studio, I won't name them, but, the biz dev rep for them, she's moved on since then, but they're a fantastic studio. Good sized studio, great track record, great client record, and their portfolio is good. Whenever it's like, what can we do? What can we improve? I'd look at their work and go, no, this is all good, right? You have answered every question. You have put yourself on. I put you forward. I like it. Just never clicked. It never clicked in 10 years. She described me as the white whale. I don't know if that's particularly flattering or not, but it was kind of, you're the one I just can't land. I can't get on it. And even when we bought studios, we never seemed to buy the studios they were already working with. And by the time I left, we still hadn't worked with them. 1 year after I left, they landed their first contract with X.
Oh.
For some reason, it took me to leave. So whatever I was doing, it was not helping them. I was the blocker to that team getting their work,
Oh
clearly.
no. Oh
I
my
know.
god.
So, yeah, it can just be it's just that bit of timing, and you'd be surprised how, I mean, maybe some part of the increase in cold call. 'Cause at that moment when you're thinking of something, somebody just says, sticks their hands up in the air, goes, "Oh, remember me?" And you're like, "Oh god, yeah, you do good facial mocap, don't you?" Right, and then it's just at that point, they just got lucky.
Yeah. I think
Just
that being top of mind is a big one for me. Like having those regular connections, making sure you're keeping your LinkedIn active, making sure that you are checking in on people and like I think all of that just helps like when the shortlist comes up, you will be top of mind because you have that connection and you're keeping regular contact and all this kind of stuff, you know. Always doing exciting things and I think it's important. We should probably get over to
we
Ron's interview,
we
shouldn't we
should.
really?
Yeah, it's great to see Ron. Um,
He's lovely, isn't
yeah.
he?
I worked with him off and on for a long time since my sumo days. I think we were
Mm.
one of his first clients because had a great relationships with the founders of Sumo and the rest when he first started up AtomHawk. And that was when, there wasn't that many studios around really, certainly not in the concept art days. Um, so yeah, and, Ron's great. He's also hasn't got much of a filter, which I think really plays to his strengths, right? It makes him look really makes him for a
Makes for a
great guy.
good podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, let's get over
Yeah.
to Ron.
Over to Ron. Hi everyone. Today's guest is someone who's been shaping external development in games for longer than most people have had a name for it. It's Ron Ashtiani. Hi. He is the
Oh,
founder of AtomHawk, one of the most respected art and design studios in the world, which he scaled and eventually sold to Sumo Group. And since then, he's moved into investing, advising across the industry, and now he's building again with Last Arrow Games. So he's seen XDev from every angle as a founder, a partner, a seller, and now someone who's backing the next generation of gaming. So we are so happy to have you here, Ron. Hello.
thank
Welcome,
you,
Ron.
Carla. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I must be mad. It's funny when you just talked about that, and then you said about coming back and building again and doing another games company. I thought, oh no, I must be crazy actually when you put it together that way. But yeah, it's 30 years next year I've been in the industry.
Really?
30.
I know. It
Mm.
makes me feel a bit uncomfortable, that one. I'll not
Well,
labor.
it's not. Yeah, it's not the age; it's the mileage, Ron.
Yeah, and it's a
But
lot of mileage as well. That's the problem. It's a lot of age and a lot of mileage.
yeah, but to go back to the beginning, though, to go back to early days startup in the games industry again, early days studio forming. That's got to be at this point kind of exciting, isn't it? After with all the
It's
organization.
awesome. I think what's awesome about it is doing it without any fear of not knowing what to do. Like
Right.
having done it previously, like every this is like the fifth business I've founded now, and each time there's always that fear of, oh, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know how to raise
Mm-hmm.
fine. I've been dogs barking away in the background. Can you guys hear that?
No,
You're all right. You're getting away with
you're
it.
fine.
All right, fine, okay. He's going nuts, and I told them to keep him on a loop. But yeah, sorry, where was I? Yeah, I
Now
think
you've been there.
yeah, to be building a game studio again and doing it this time, like it's the fifth business I've founded. I've been through all the kind of stages of this. It feels really fun because it's like doing it with the full intention of having like a success rather than worrying too much about it. It's kind of it's nice to be doing something with that real experience behind you that sort of tells you that what you're doing is the right thing.
That must
Yeah.
be very comforting.
Yeah, well, we'll see though, because the thing is, you can't get too comfortable. Things can still go wrong. But do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I know how to hire people. I know how to build a management team. I know how to, arrange
yeah.
the financial situation and get things off the ground. The main thing is obviously with games, the risk is the game itself. That's the big elephant in the room. And I've got a really good team. I've got Andy Willens, who has done so many great games, and then Owen O'Brien as well. So the most of the team were either, I mean, I knew some of them from Midway Games, and then they were at CCP Games, and then we were at Sumo together. So they're all really experienced guys, and the game's shaping up really nicely. But I can't
Who did
talk
I
about.
see on LinkedIn wearing a mocap suit the other day?
Yeah, that's so. Andy has very much in his mind what he wants the player to do, and he's physically, he's in good shape for a guy his age, and he's quite happy to do it. So after talking about finding an actor to do it, in the end it was like, well, why don't you just do it? Because it's not like we're talking about like gameplay animations rather than sort of cutscene stuff. So it's very physical. And so yeah, we just got Andy in the motion capture suit, and because our game takes place in well, I can give you this. There's a lot of deep snow in our game,
Oh,
so
Okay.
we tied a rope around Andy's waist to give that sort of
All right. Pullback.
that restriction on him. Yeah, that pullback. So Tom, one of our artists, is kind of pulling Andy back at the same time. It works really well. So and the data we got out of that was great. But it's so good to be doing this, and I think we're developing this game in a kind of real kind of guerrilla warfare kind of
Yeah.
you know method. Like we're not, we're doing whatever it takes to get the job done rather than trying to sort of lavishly spend cash on everything. It's very much kind of old school. Whatever gets the job done is the way we're going to do it.
Well, that can seep into the character of a game as well. Those little things, they all kind of like add up to something that's a bit intangible, but it
Yeah,
gives the game a certain character or a feel to it. And I think, Yeah, when it's too polished, that can also come through. And I suspect that it'll do you some favors having the kind of grown-ups.
Yeah, the methodology with the team as well is that everybody is 100% useful. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, so I'm the CEO and I'm also the art director, and Owen's the studio head and he's also the exec producer. And to be honest, he's also been doing a lot of the operational, making sure that everybody's got what they need and everything else. And so everybody on the team is quite broadly skilled and a generalist. And I think that that's what I took away from the early games I developed in my career, like, you know, John Carpenter's The Thing, for example. That was a really big game at the time. It was a number one seller, over 1 million units sold, but we did it with a team of 25 people. And we did it with 25 people because we were all, you know, I was doing like environment art, I did a bit of UI, I did a bit of effects, and it was kind of, and yeah, that's we got it done because we were all good generalists, very passionate about what we were doing.
Yeah, I started off as a generalist as well. Like when I first started out in my very first job in the industry at Supersonic Software, I was doing level design, modeling, concept, UI, and a bit of everything. You learn so much in when you're kind of being that generalist role, and it's quite efficient, I would say.
It's efficient. I think that the downside is getting to that absolute top quality bar. It's very hard to do that without the specialism. But you know what it's like when you're making a game. The key thing is that I think you've got to make it exist first, and then you can
Mm-hmm.
worry about it looking
Nice of
amazing later.
fun.
And so we're focusing on making it exist. And then I think going back to the sort of external development topic, when we get to the point where we're going to need to push it from, you know, the whole game is sitting at sort of 60%, it's playable, it's cool, but it maybe isn't perfect, then we'll bring in the specialists we need to sort of really polish it to that point. But the core team is a generalist core team because we're trying to maintain that efficiency, basically.
So there is a desire to bring external development in to give you that high level polish once you're a little bit further along.
Yeah, definitely. And what that looks like, I think it will be like a large number of, because obviously we've had a lot of turmoil in the industry. A lot of people have been laid off. The upside of that is there's also a lot of really talented people out there who
Mm-hmm.
maybe wouldn't have been accessible to a studio of our size because they would have been, you know, hidden away in these big AAA companies as a specialist. But now they're available. We'll probably use a lot of individual specialist contractors to do some of the work for us, as well as studios as well for the sort of heavier lifting. But it's external development has changed in that way as well, because never in my time in the industry have I known there being so many available freelancers. So that also changes things a little bit. And it's like, how are we going to manage that? Because it's a lot of individuals. So yeah, I'm interested to sort of figure that one out.
Well, it's true. We now have the reluctant freelancer. So these are people
Yeah.
who I think an awful lot of them would like to have full-time jobs, but they're in a contractor role because they're in a contractor role. But they're incredibly talented, and there's an awful lot that can be done with it. I think partly what I'm seeing happening now is that it's not just the studios bringing in some contractors; it's the suppliers are scaling with contractors as well. And so I think there might be some more opportunities for those, those highly experienced contractors who now find themselves in that position where they perhaps would rather not be. They might be able to get from the supplier side as well as from the dev
Yeah,
side.
yeah, absolutely. There's actually a lot of them as well. One of the things I've definitely discovered is that the industry press tells you that there's, you know, tens of thousands of people unemployed. But then when you go seeking those really top people, the people you want, they're busy. So it is like, you know, it makes you wonder like who the yeah, it is like still very hard to find the very top specialist people. I think they'll always be in demand.
So you talk about bringing the external dev like that 40% or that, when you've got it to a certain point. Does that also work? Because I assume your experience kind of shows that there are points where you bring the external dev in early in the process as well. What's the earliest point you see bringing in external dev while still keeping this kind of, I don't know, rough and ready guerrilla startup kind of feel to it too?
You have to, I think the thing of it is though, it depends on the partner, right? So like some partners some companies are agile enough to deal with a game that is still in flux.
Right.
So you're not going to be able to, at the stage that we're at, for example, there's no way you could create like any kind of defined set of deliverables for an outsourced partner that's beyond like the next 2 weeks. You know, because we just don't know, and that's why, from our point of view, we're trying to keep things keep a very generalist internal team, because we need to like sort of basically hack things together to get it to a point where it's proven and we can see that this is going to be fun before we then break it down again, turn it into a series of requirements, and find someone who can do it properly. So I think that at the moment, that's why like individuals are kind of what we're looking for, because individuals, we can say, okay, here's a fixed term, you work with us for the next like 60 days, and we'll just tell you what we want from you on a kind of weekly basis, because things are in flux all the time. Then I think when we get to a point when we're actually ready to start building some key assets that are going to be like, say, a month's worth of work to build this character, or 2 months worth of work to build this bit, that's when we can start to engage with externals. But at the minute, things are far too fluid. I think you have to almost get to a point where you've got I wouldn't say a vertical slice, but like a good playable demo where the promise is proven. Do you know what I mean? That's the point, really, I think.
That's still an early stage, though.
Yeah. But if you've got a
There's a
3-year project, it's probably a year in.
Yeah, that makes it a bit
yeah.
more scary.
Yeah, one third of the way in before I think we'll be able to engage with the larger companies. I think up to that point it'll be just freelance individuals.
There's a lot of developers out there who are starting to engage with these larger or these service providers, no matter how big they are, really, on more of a augmented kind of development sort of model, where they will go and talk with the studios to find the exact talent that they're looking for. So like going through an interview process and hand picking specific resources from these service providers, and that's becoming more and more popular. Like, so there's probably a lot of service providers out there that are really interested in talking to developers about hand picking those specialist resources for exactly what you need. It's becoming like quite a popular way of working right now.
I think we've almost come full circle on that, though, because when I think back to like when I founded AtomHawk in 2009, the whole external development thing, it wasn't a thing. Like, it was, you had like some of the big outsourcing companies like Virtuos at the time, they were around, and you had like one concept art studio in Massive Black, but they were very much kind of like a hard thing to work with at the time.
Yeah.
And Volta, I think, started at the same time as we did at AtomHawk, but they were in Canada and we were in the UK, so we didn't cross over for quite a long time, in our sort of growth trajectories. But in the early days, it was very much like, it's me as an art director and my 4 guys who are named, if you know what I mean. And the clients were like, right, this is what we want. It was almost like a contractor group plus, because we came as a little dev team that had an art director, had artists, and had a UI artist, and we could do quite a lot, when it came to like prototyping and developing things. But we were all named, and then over time, that sort of went away. As you remember, like, it was probably at the heyday, just before, well, going into the years before COVID and COVID. Games companies needed volume, so they stopped asking questions about who the team are and what their background is. They were just like, we'll just trust you to get this done. But I think now, obviously, budgets are tighter again and teams are smaller. They're scrutinizing things more carefully.
They can be more picky. They can be more picky at the moment, because there's opportunities there, right? It's a buyer's market, and I mean, for a long time, certainly you literally couldn't. So in some of the organizations, you couldn't name people. If you were working with a supplier, you couldn't put in your contract, this is a named person who we intend to be on this. It was a very gray area. I mean, I did come across instances where they were kind of like, we've had to let so and so go. If you happen to hire them, that won't be a bad thing. Right, when they're talking to their suppliers. Yeah, there was a little bit of workarounds going on here and there, that I noticed. But yeah,
I think also the other thing I remember was that moment where we transitioned to more sort of like a bulk team, where I remember, probably sort of 2014, 15, and we still had a few customers that were like, I specifically want Pete Thompson, who was our lead artist at the time, or I specifically want this person, or I specifically want me, who by that point was a CEO of the company and couldn't really spend any time, on the client projects, and having to sort of have that chat on the phone to say, look, you're monopolizing all the key people in my company, and I'm not going to be able to function and utilize the rest of the team if you hoover up all of our leadership. So you're going to have to take like maybe one of our leads and five of our non-leads, because you can't have all the leads. It's just not going to work. And it was, sometimes it went fine. And once you explained it, they were like, oh, I get it. That's okay. But other times they were like, well, I specifically want these people, and that's it. And we had to, sometimes it meant we had to part ways with them and go with somebody else, because that now allowed us to utilize more people.
I love how you said how AtomHawk was kind of like the first concept company that popped up in the UK. There were a few others, but not many around. And so, like, it seemed as if you kind of jumped into it just as external development and concept was being defined. So, what is it that kicked that off for you? What is it that what did you see in the market that others didn't and made you want to take the jump to do it?
Yeah, I mean that's an easy one to answer, and I think it's also an interesting topic. So at the time, you have to bear in mind we'd just gone through the financial crisis. The games industry was probably in the second biggest mess that it's been in after the one we've currently just been through. And I think that some people in the industry, maybe weren't even working in the industry back then, because it is like 17 years ago now. But it was a mess. Studios were closing left, right, and center, huge numbers of layoffs. And I had a really good art team that I'd just spent 2 years building at Midway. So I'd hired really good concept artists. I'd spent a lot of time training these guys. And we were trying to find a buyer for our game studio as a whole. And people kept coming in. And the number one thing they kept saying was, flipping out, your art and your process of development is really, really good. It's really, we've never seen anything like as strong as this. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like, it started to make me think maybe the bit that I'm doing is really something I could wrap up and take it elsewhere, because we were all feeling fed up with making games. The games that at the time there were a lot of, I would say, stupid management decisions being made in some of these big games companies, which meant that really talented devs who were pouring their heart and soul into it were getting laid off, or the games were getting canned just purely because someone somewhere made the decision that affected us and we had no say in it. So I really wanted to take the creative pipeline that I developed and the team I developed and just do the bit that we did really well, which was the art bit, and not get involved in the rest of it, because at the time that was chaos and I couldn't be doing with it. So, and it worked. And the other thing I could see was that as the games industry was in a downturn, very expensive and difficult to find people like top level concept artists or art directors or whatever. Game studios weren't going to be able to afford to have those people on staff full time. So my thought again was like, well, they probably only really need them for pre-production. So why don't we become that as a service, and a games company that maybe couldn't afford people at our level on salary would engage us for 6 months, and we would do the bulk of the design work at the start, and then we could part ways and they could finish the game off themselves without us. So, and that really worked as well. It was the right time, the right place, all these things. It's like, and some of it is intentional, some of it is luck. I think there's always that in business.
So you saw the gap and the opportunity and you just did it.
Yeah, it did. And do you know what? I've got to be honest, it took off and way faster than I thought it was going to. Weirdly, I thought in my mind we're going to have to start again from scratch and build something, and it's going to be hard, and it might take me 20 years or whatever. And I remember the first week, the phone rang a couple of times, and it wasn't a customer; it was just somebody trying to sell us something. We were all sitting there like, "Wow, this is going okay." And then the third time the phone rang, or the fourth time, it was Ubisoft Reflections, and they were like, "Oh, we need some help with Driver San Francisco." And then I got a call from the guys at NetherRealm, we're doing another Mortal Kombat game. Do you want to come and help us with that? And give us 6 months later, we were like too busy basically, and it was really good. So yeah, it went better than I could have ever hoped, really. And I think that's the thing that I think it would be harder today, to do it, is that there's so much noise in that space and there's so much competition. How on earth would you cut through all of those existing relationships to make yourself stand out? Yeah, tough.
Well, it's true. I remember, and you're right. There was only like 3 or 4 that you could ever turn to, when it came to doing concept. Certainly at certainly a certain level, at a certain point, there was only a couple that you could really ever go to. And I remember you. When I think of the pitches, it was AtomHawk, Massive Black, and Volta that were always on the same, like the same group would go through for the RFPs, and the rest it didn't change.
Yeah, and it was, and circumstance as well. It's funny. Like Claude and I, Claude obviously founded Volta, and we're friends now. And it's funny, like when we met a few times to talk about our journeys, we were basically doing pretty much the same thing, but in 2 territories that were separated by 5,000 miles or whatever it is. So the good thing was we didn't have to compete or eat each other's lunch, maybe in those early years, and that allowed both of the companies to become successful. I think Massive Black unfortunately had a number of internal issues which kind of killed them off, which that was kind of unfortunately, an issue for them. And then so that allowed AtomHawk and Volta to grow sort of unchallenged for a while. We got probably good 3-4 years on us before other people started to move into that space, but that was enough, to get a good start. And then as long as you don't screw up, you can kind of keep going.
Do you think the specialism of like a highly specialized concept is as what's the word I'm looking for? Like rife as it was, as needed, as used? Do you think it's still as popular to use now as it was back then?
I think we're back there now. So
Mm.
I think that what happened was, I think naturally human beings like working with who they like.
Mm-hmm.
So what was happening quite often is, and I saw this firsthand running AtomHawk, I built a company to do a certain thing very well, or a certain 2 or 3 things very well, and that's what it does. But because I've got a really good relationship with someone who owns a game studio or is running a game studio, they would then say to me, "Oh, I really want you to make this for us as well." And at the time, obviously, you're flattered because they're asking you to do something for them, and also you want the revenue and you want the opportunity to build something else. In hindsight, that's diluting what you're good at, and it's better to have one thoroughbred racehorse than a whole stable of nags. You know what I mean? And I think but this is the challenge. It's so sometimes I think I went into service lines for somebody's request, when I should have just said, "No, I appreciate the offer, but I'm going to introduce this other company that I'm good friends with, and they do this really well, and just make sure I have a gentleman's agreement that they're not going to suddenly start competing with us." So it's kind of, which, I think in hindsight, what I should have done is built alliances with other companies that were good at what they do, specialists at what they do, just like AtomHawk was a specialist in what it does, and try and forge something formal between us where we pass work each other's way and don't kill each other in the process.
I wouldn't beat yourself up about that, because that's just what Massive Black tried to do.
Yeah.
Remember, they tried to do it with the Southeast Asian network as well, and it did not go down well at all.
Yeah.
A lot of it had to do with the management, but it didn't work. And that's when there were far fewer suppliers to build those kind of networks with. About 2010, something like that, I think they tried to do it. I think, to your point, we were talking earlier, I think before we started recording, about the generalist side, and you're right about being asked to do stuff. But when you think when you're in a studio, when you join as an artist, if people are like, "All right, they know what they're doing," you get asked to do stuff that you had no idea how to do. Right? You just go, "Oh, so and so can do it. I'm sure they did this well, so they can do that okay." And you do get pulled into lots of different directions. It seems like an almost organic version of that for an external dev as well. Like, yeah, they were good at concept art, so let's get them doing this too.
Yeah, so sometimes it's an opportunity that was worth having. Like I remember working with NetherRealm back in the day, and mostly we were doing environments for them for back when they were still doing like Mortal Kombat 9 and the backgrounds were like 2D. They were 3D, but they were still like the old Mortal Kombat games. And suddenly they sort of said, look, could you do characters for us as well? And we weren't really known for characters at the time. We were mostly sort of environments. So we built a character pipeline, and we hired a couple of really good character artists. And after a few teething issues that I've got to say, they were absolutely, the best client from the point of view of not holding that against us, because they had asked us to sort of start doing it for them. They came up with us on the journey to deal with those issues, but we got there in the end, and we got good at characters as well. So I think, but the thing is, that's a sidestep. If you think about what our route was, this is our route, and I think branching 10, 15 degrees either side and picking up new skills is great. But I think suddenly saying, right, we're going to go into like, we tried to go into 3D animation at one point,
Yeah.
and it totally failed. Like
Right.
it was because it was too big a step. None of my core team were skilled at that, and it just wasn't in our wheelhouse. And so we launched this service. We weren't competitive. We were too expensive, and it just didn't work.
And when talking about like kind of branching out and trying new things and evolving the company, you actually ended up selling the company to Sumo after a while, right? Was there something that changed within the company that prompted you wanting to make that happen? What was it that prompted you going through that with Sumo?
There were a few things. I think it wasn't one single thing. I think in the market, I'd seen, for example, Volta was bought by Keywords,
Mm-hmm.
and that worried me because I suddenly thought that as our main competitor, and by this point we were crossing over quite a lot because we'd both become global companies. So we're crossing over, and I thought, ooh, with a Keywords war chest, what could they do? That's quite
Yeah.
worrying. And we also wanted to open an office in on the west coast of either the US or Canada, because we were wanting to obviously again cross over more with our competitors and take more of the market share. So, but that was not going to be cheap. That needed probably at least a million quid investing in it, maybe more. And I at the time I was like, that would have to be everything that I've ever made from this company reinvested back in. And bearing in mind I'd been running that company for 8 years at the time, I was also getting pretty tired.
Yeah.
Because I didn't found that company with other business partners who were also directors, so I didn't have other people I could lean on. I was literally doing it all on my own, and it wasn't until the last couple of years that I brought in, Tim Wilson, for example, who was a great right hand man. But I did like nearly no 6 years pretty much on my own, and it ground me down. So I think all of these things happening together made me go, or maybe also need to find a wealthy backer to help me grow the company further, and also get some of my time back out of the business in the form of some reward for myself, because at the time I hadn't really taken any money out of the business, and I needed to see some of that reward.
So did you approach Sumo, or did Sumo approach you?
It was a really weird way that happened. So I actually went to them originally as friends who I'd worked with for a long time, and wanted to know how investment worked. And I remember we were at Dice, and I never raised investment. I bootstrapped AtomHawk from day one. So I was having a chat with Paul Porter at the time in Vegas, and a drink, and I said, look, I'm I'm seeing what's going on in the industry, this consolidation, and I'm thinking maybe I need to do a big investment round, and try and either buy up some other companies or expand us into America. And he said, yeah, sure, come down to our studio and we'll talk you through it. And I had a meeting with Paul and Carl, showed them our business plan for expansion. And at the end of like what was supposed to be an hour long meeting, it turned into like 3 hours or something. And they were like, look, don't show this to anyone. We want to go away and talk about it, and we'll come back to you. And then, a few weeks later, they came back and said, well, look, we might be interested in buying your business and pulling it into our group and forming a group, because we're thinking about doing a stock market flotation. So we hatched this plan to sort of bring the companies together to make a bigger group company, and then do a flotation.
Were you Sumo's first acquisition?
Yeah, yeah.
You were, right? Okay.
Did it feel like a good fit?
It felt like a good fit. I think there was some naive mistakes that I made, and I think they would probably see them as naive mistakes as well, that they made it. And I think this is the nature of anything you do first. I mean, for a long time I was pretty cross with those guys that things didn't work out, but now it's all water under the bridge, and I can talk about it in a kind of objective way. But I think that the problem was that I didn't get any real commitment from them as to what we were going to do with AtomHawk after we did the acquisition. So I should have probably said, I'm going to expect this amount of investment. I'm going to expect you to help me grow to this point. I'm going to expect you to put some money in to do this, and had a roadmap in place where I knew where we were going to go with it after we'd sold. But as it sort of happened, things were kind of discussed, but never actually committed to or nailed down. And then as soon as they went into a flotation, it just derailed everything. Like all the plans that we'd set in place just went out the window because they were so focused on doing a flotation. And it just changed the whole thing, really. So unfortunately, the only thing I got to do that was on my roadmap was setting up the Vancouver office.
Yeah.
But nothing else materialized. So yeah, it was a tough one.
Is there something about Vancouver that drew you in? Obviously, it's well nice and everything, but like, what is it about Vancouver that made you go, "Huh, yeah, that's the place"?
It was a few things. Like, I think firstly, I'd looked at America. I looked at Los Angeles or San Francisco, and the problem is, America have a law that you can't be a director of a company without being an American citizen. So that would have meant that I would have had to find an American that I trust to be the head of that company.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't really have anyone that I knew well enough who was an American citizen. I knew a few. Strangely, I knew a few people in America that were either Brits who'd moved over there or Canadians who were there, but I didn't have the right person in my network. But in British Columbia, you can be a director. You can be, the good thing about British Columbia is pretty much all their systems for tax and identification and all of these things are connected to the UK systems. So you can still be a director of a Canadian company while being here, which was fine. So, and it was on the same time zone, and you could drive to Seattle in 3 hours or whatever. So it was the best solution for us.
I always suspected XDS played a bit of a part in that.
Yeah, well,
because it was the XDS at the Bayshore, the one on the base of Stanley Park. It was always beautiful weather, and both I remember you and Sprung, within about 2 or 3 years of going to XDS, you both had a Vancouver branch, and I did wonder.
Yeah, the thing is, it's what you humans are creatures of habit, aren't they? Like, once you've been somewhere a couple of times, you can kind of start to visualize yourself in that place. And I remember I've been to Vancouver for SIGGRAPH in 2010. I've been for SIGGRAPH in 2012. Then I did the XDS with you guys. I think it was 2014, the first one I did, and then I did 15 and 16. So by the time I set up the studio, I'd spent like 8-9 weeks in Vancouver, and I felt like I knew it pretty well, and I started to build some contacts there and some friends as well. So it was, it worked pretty well. And then I was very lucky that Chris Rowe, do you remember Chris?
Yeah.
Chris Rowe was a studio head at AtomHawk Canada for a long time. He was working at Capcom Vancouver at the time, and I'd worked with him at Midway Games, and he's from Middlesbrough. So it was a really weird thing. We just met for a pint, and I said, "Oh, I'm looking to sort this studio out." And he was like, "Well, I think we're all going to get let go from Capcom," because it was back when Capcom did that huge. Remember, they pretty much closed that studio. So within about a month, he was working setting up that studio for me instead.
Everything just came together, really, didn't it? It all aligned for you.
That's amazing. There's been a lot happening for you over the past however long it's been since you started Last Arrow. You say, has it been a year or something now?
It's a year for me. It's a year next month. Yeah,
Oh my
crazy.
God, I'm so quick. What was it that made you want to jump back in and start doing this kind of stuff, but going into game dev now rather than in providing services? What made you really keen to do it? You've been doing painting, you've been doing advising. Your paintings are awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're really nice. But yeah, what made you want to get back in and do this?
I think at the point where I created AtomHawk out of what was Midway Games, I was at a real junction point there where I wasn't sure if I should just start a game studio.
Mm.
And I think and I wrestled with that for quite a long time. Do I just go with a whole hog and make a game studio, or do I just focus on the art side of it? But because at the time I was only like 31, I didn't have the contacts that I have today, and I had no experience of raising finance or how to sort of build a more complicated company, because a game studio is a more complex company than a service provider company. It just is. There's all sorts of challenges to do with intellectual property, and there's all sorts of risks to do with development. And I felt that for my first company, I'll not bite off more than I can chew, and I'll learn as I go, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
But I think that over time I came to maybe not I came to slightly regret it, actually, because once I'd learned all of those things, I was like, well, I probably could have started a game studio. And I think the thing that made AtomHawk very appealing for customers was that we were developers. We weren't like service companies. We'd made, I'd been in the games industry making games for 12 years when I started that company, and the same with the rest of the team. So when we embedded with a team, they were like, "Oh, this is like working with another. You're a dev team, just minus the programmers and minus the designers." So that always sat with me as something I wanted to do. But actually, the catalyst was working with Night Dive Studios. Night Dive do all the remasters.
All right.
They're an Atari studio, and they're really, if you look at remasters, they're famous for it. They're a really good bunch for this. And back in 2004, they did the remaster of the John Carpenter The Thing game.
All right.
And they asked me if I would come on board and direct it from a creative point of view. And Mark Atkinson came across as well as technical director, and we spent a year working with Night Dive. And I had a whale of a time. And they were, the way they developed things, because I'd come from obviously Midway Games where we were doing AAA, and I was a bit burned out. AAA was a bit hardcore for me. But Night Dive were back to having a really generous team, everybody just getting things done. They didn't worry too much about meticulously scheduling everything. They just moved from whatever was most important to the next most important to the next most important till it was done. And that showed me that you can still make games in that way, and game development can be fun. So sort of that, and that remaster then went on to be successful. And so I thought, well, actually, that's, if I can still make games in that way, I still want to make games. I just don't want to make games from a spreadsheet.
Yeah. That's still 20 years ago that you did that. You had that experience. And you think about how much games has changed since then, how much complicated, how much more there is to them than that. And but you still, that still holds true in the
Night Dive. Yeah, Night Dive, we managed to do that remaster with, really nice graphics and nice art and everything else, with a team of, I think there was like sub 10 people on that game.
Right.
And we did it in 2024 using modern tools, because the thing of it is as well, I think while games have got more complex, tools have got a lot more complex.
Yeah.
And you can do a lot of things procedurally, a lot of things, are done for you. So actually, as long as you've got the right people, each man can, each person can do a ton more work than they used to be able to do back in the day.
Have you been looking at AI to help you build anything?
Yeah, we've looked at it, and we've used it a bit. It's still a really difficult thing to So I think what it's useful for is when it's in tool format.
Yeah.
I think the generative aspect of it, I don't really like that, and I don't like it not purely from being an artist and not wanting to invite AI into my sort of pipeline. It's mainly because it's not very controllable still, and the tools do get better every year, but still you can't control things at the level of you can when you're actually doing it yourself. But it's good for generating like textures, it's good for optimizing models, it's good for doing all sorts of things. So I think what I'm sort of looking at it from the point of view is it's like an AI augmentation rather than an AI replacement. So the artists are still making the creative decisions, but the tools are letting them do, twice as much work as they would have previously been able to do.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, it's I think it's going to be seen more and more. Like I've been speaking to a few different development studios about how they're using AI, and I found like the big AAAs are still a little bit kind of um worried about it, especially when they're working on a big IP. But then there's some of the indie studios that are kind of working on their own games, and AI isn't so much of a problem. I've spoken to some developers that are like their company have actually mandated that they have to find ways of using AI within their pipelines, and that includes with their external partners as well. Like you have to find ways of bringing AI into what you're doing. So it's definitely becoming more of a thing. I think it's going to take a while for it to become a thing for AAA.
Agreed, and that's it. We're making an own IP game at the moment. We can, we control what we're making, and we can do that, but we're still not, I mean, it's not really making its way into our actual creative output. That's because the question around that is there's also this question around copyright, there's also questions around where's it getting its source materials. But for example, like, we want vines to grow up a wall. I mean, there's a procedural tool that will make vines grow up a wall, and
Yeah.
that's great, because otherwise we'd have had to flipping model those vines, and it would have been a right pain to do it. And then as soon as someone in design said we want to change the layout of that room, we've got to do it again. So it's kind of like, so these are the things that the tools that are great. And also I think some of the stuff for prototyping as well, some of the video tools where you can say, let's go from frame A to frame B, and you can verbally describe what comes up in the middle. If you think about, like, from a gameplay point of view, we're saying, well, what does it look like when we fire a crossbow? You can have a mock-up of the character holding the crossbow and a mock-up of something else, and then you can get it to do it. And you've got to try it a few times, but sometimes something really interesting comes out of that, and you can say, well, that's a good reference point. So it's not like the AI ends up in the game, but it ends up being a reference point that we used, much like it would have been if we'd looked at a movie and said, well, this scene when this guy does this is our benchmark kind of motion for this. So again, it's going back to it being another reference tool rather than a content creation tool. But I know that some studios are trying to really push content creation. We haven't had any success with that really yet. The models that you get out of content AI tools are still pretty rough.
And that's been one of my challenges with it, is I don't see it. Haven't seen AI overcoming the interim challenges to getting a good model. Like I wouldn't want to ever have to do a UV map again as long as I lived, right? And I haven't seen an AI tool that does that perfectly yet. I haven't, and that strikes me as the easy ground, right? I expect all
Yeah.
my topology to be perfect because AI should be able to do that. This is maths, and it's not doing that right yet. So I struggle to believe that they're creating really great models if they haven't done these interim stages yet.
This is it. It's like I saw a meme on the internet where someone had put, I want I want AI to do my washing and clean my house. I don't want it so I can write stories
Yeah.
and
Yes.
paint pictures, and it's the opposite way around. We still have to do the robotic, tedious work and let the AI do the creative stuff. But the thing of it is, I think that you're right. I think the AI tools that I'm looking at are the things that take those tedious jobs off our plates and enable us to do more. And I think that, like, for example, I found a tool the other day that you can take a piece of concept art and you can repose the character. So you can basically, like, say, here's my concept that I've done. Here's a pose from Batman, The Dark Knight, or whatever. and I want this character reposing into this position because I'm going to use this in something else. Brilliant. Do you know what I mean? I didn't have to draw it again. So,
yes, that's
happy
awesome.
days. So, and these are those things that I think that the AI companies need to be focusing on, is how do we make creativity more powerful rather than how do we take the creativity away from the humans,
Couldn't agree more.
I
Definitely in the
agree.
tools.
I think we need to speed through to our final section because else
Okay.
we'll run out of time. And I don't want that. I'm going to give you one closing question, then we're going to go quick fire. We have a quick fire round of fun questions. But first off, okay, if we sat down with you in like 5 years, what would need to happen for you to say, this chapter that I'm doing now has been more meaningful than my last one?
I don't think it could be more meaningful, but I think if I can build a successful studio that makes a successful game that's our own
Mm.
IP, for me, that will be the icing on the cake. Because
Mm.
I've had success in selling services, and I've had creative success while working on things for other people. And I've had personal creative success in my own oil paintings and a book I wrote and things like that. But I've
Yeah.
never actually had success in making my own game, because that's like a whole another
Yeah.
level of complexity. So for me, it's like, if I was on my deathbed and it was like, what would you like to be able to say? If I could just tick that box as well, I'd be able to say, I completed the game and I'm, I'm happy. Do you know what I mean?
You ran
It's like,
it.
yeah, I did
Yes,
everything
that
I
would be
wanted to
so
do.
fulfilling.
But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You can't have everything in life as well. And I'm not gonna cry about it if it doesn't go the way I
Are you,
want it to.
you planning on getting a publisher for your game, or are you going to
Yeah,
self-publish?
that's the step we're in. So we just showed a demo behind closed doors at GDC, and it was really
Oh,
well received. So then we're going to be at Gamescom with a playable demo,
Wow.
and that will be something that we'll be able to show a lot more people. But we've already had some good interest about the game, so yeah, fingers crossed. But it is a difficult time in the industry, so
yeah.
it's it could take longer than expected. But at the moment, we've got very good, sympathetic investors who are at the moment, very much on board with what we're doing. So I'm hoping I can bring everyone together at the perfect moment, and it'll all be fine.
Awesome.
Yes,
I'm sure you
that
will.
would be
You
awesome.
will.
Right, let's do our 10 quick fire questions and then we'll wrap up in a nice little bow and you can go and do your thing. So, okay, are you ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, question one. What do you suck at? And what's your kryptonite?
I am really bad at multitasking, really bad.
Right.
Like, I'm a one track at a time person. And it was one of the things I learned when I first started a company, was that I rely on having someone really good to be that multi-thinking, multi-threading person and let me focus on breaking down really difficult problems and solving them one at a time.
Amazing. Good to know. What's a small decision that had a huge impact on your career?
Um, I think it was not taking um, a role in Canada. So
Mm.
when I was probably about 7 years into my career, I was offered a job. It was actually to work on Splinter Cell at Ubisoft, and not
No
the
way.
first game, but I think it was the second one or something like that. And I was a massive fan, and I literally was ready to go, and I didn't go. And at the time I felt almost like I'd messed up and I should have gone. But now in hindsight, things worked out for the best for me not going.
Yeah, you've done pretty well for yourself, I'd say.
Yeah, but for a good 3 years after I made that decision, I was like, oh no, I screwed up, because the company I was working for then went bust, and then the company after that went bust, and things didn't go anywhere for me for the next 3 years. So there was 3 years where I was like, I made a massive mistake there, and that
Uh-huh.
Splinter Cell game did really, really well as well. So I remember just watching it sailing off into the sunset, and me going, oh no.
That was Canada was just targeting British talent as well. I seem to remember them just like having a whole advertising campaign of why you in England when you could be here having all of this.
Oh,
Worked
it
for
was
me.
it was massive salary, full relocation, really good title, job promotion, and yeah, just I didn't take it because at the time my girlfriend, who's now my wife, uh, she didn't want to go, and so I chose the partner over the job. And
Oh,
actually,
you did it for love. That's even
I did
better.
it for love. It's
Can't,
totally
can't
true.
be a regret.
I did it for love with a little bit of resentment afterwards, but it was okay.
Oh, that's a great story. Okay, what's the fastest you've ever trusted someone and why?
Um, I think it was actually probably Sean Himrick at NetherRealm. He was my boss at the time, but he didn't pull any punches at all. He was brutal with his uh, his like sort of assessment of things, and I think that we just got on really well after that, because I'm also a bit like that. I don't like sugarcoating things, and we went on to work together really successfully for a decade after that. But he's doesn't pull any punches, and so after about 2 3 days at work, I came out. I was like, oh, I really like my new boss. He's good.
Great, awesome. Okay, what's one tool, workflow, or habit that you swear by?
Um, Workflow. The weird thing is, it has been superseded now, but at the time when we used to do feedback and comms through email, and you'd lose things, and you'd also not be able to pass those things on to other people in your team,
Mm.
and it was a real mess. And I remember we went from that kind of system to like Basecamp at the time, and obviously now Basecamp's like, there's loads of other tools that do that, but at the time it was like, it was unique. And I remember in AtomHawk, it changed everything hugely, because it meant that you could have all your comms with your client and your project in one thread, and you could have multiple threads for multiple projects. And suddenly we didn't have to do everything via email anymore, and you could post pictures in it and all sorts of stuff. And it was like
Mm.
game changer, And also, if someone was off on holiday, someone else could look in the thread and pick up the place. So yeah, it was really good. And then that evolved into all sorts of amazing tools now that do that.
Fabulous. And what's the best accidental connection you've ever made at an event?
Uh, I was on a plane coming back from Gamescom, and the guy next to me, we were just chatting, and someone said, the hostess came down with a bottle of champagne and said, "Oh, here you go. This has been sent down from the gentleman over there." And I was like, "Who the hell is this guy that I'm talking to?" It turned out to be Scott Robertson from, who did Star Citizen. He was the guy who founded that, and then we ended up doing a bit of work with him as well. So it was a really random thing that he just happened to be making a game set in space, and we just happened to have finished designing spaceships for Guardians of the Galaxy. So I sort of followed up and said, "Oh, by the way, we actually design spaceships." And then he was like, "Oh, come and design some spaceships for us." So it was a really good random sitting next to somebody on a plane thing.
What is it about that guy that people just want to give him money and things? Like it's a real knack.
I don't know how he does it, to be honest, but it was a good thing for us. It was a good random opportunity. But I've had a few things like that where I've met, you know,
Yeah, the people hang around
like,
enough bars.
well, it's like the J.K. Rowling Pottermore thing. We worked on that for 7 years, and it became a really strong relationship between us and her sort of team. And we did a lot of design work for Harry Potter, but it all came about because my wife worked with a guy who worked for her, and they'd been at a barbecue, and then suddenly I got talking to him about what we did for a living, and then suddenly he was like, "Oh, you could help with this," and it went from bear in mind we were only 5 guys in a room in Gateshead at the time, and suddenly we're working with J.K. Rowling's team on all sorts of amazing stuff, and it was purely just coincidental.
That's so great. Did you get to meet J.K. Rowling? You
I
did, right?
have, yeah, I've met her. Yeah, she's very nice. And I was also late to a meeting once, very late to a meeting that she was in, and I thought I'm going to get killed. And everyone looked really cross with me when I rocked up to this meeting late. But at the time, we just had our first daughter, and she kept us up all night crying. She was, a little baby, and I turned up to
Yeah.
this meeting. I was all discombobulated. My clothes were like a mess. I'd like, slept. I looked awful. And I arrived at this meeting like, I'm so sorry for being late. And she was like, oh, what's happened? And I sort of said like, I've got this new baby, and she was like, oh, don't worry about it. Just sit down. Everything's fine. And because she cut me some slack, everyone else in the room kind of was like, well, okay, if Joe's going to let this slide, then maybe this is all right. So I was like, thank God for that, because I think otherwise I was going to be burned at the stake.
Lucky boy. Oh my God. Okay. What's a trend in game dev that you're excited about and one that you're tired of?
The trend I'm excited about in game dev is actually that there are a number of new teams like ourselves of good experienced people who are breaking away and doing not indie games and not double A games, but something in between. Like they're doing new things that are going to be high quality, but not necessarily overly long. And there's we're going to see a whole load of new formats of games, I think, coming out over the next 5 years that are going to bridge that gap between indie and AAA and AA, and that's all going to sort of change, I think. So that's exciting. The thing that I'm fed up of personally is repetitive franchise releases. And I just feel like IPs have been squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed to the point where I'm just fed up with them. And I don't want to play another this game or another that game. I want to play something new. And I think a lot of people are feeling that way. That I think the problem is that the AAA market got to a point where those investments are so big. When you're spending a couple of 100 million on a game, you want it to be based on something that is tried and tested with an audience. So you end up naturally going for an existing IP, and yeah, it just all the flavor and the joy of game development goes out the window along with it, which is a sad thing.
I totally get it. There's a lot of exciting new things happening in the industry right now. I could harp on about this for ages. All the cool indie stuff that's coming out right now is amazing.
Exactly, and that cool indie stuff will become the next wave of the successful ones will become the next wave of sorts of IPs that are going to be out there. But I think we've got to learn from this. We've got to learn from the fact that we can't just keep flogging the same stuff over and over again. We have to innovate. I think it's okay to do like have a successful IP and then do some sidestep products that are kind of like related, expanding the world out. I think that's okay, when you expand the world. But I think just doing a sequel, which is the same thing with a slightly different story and a couple of little additional, like, oh, we added some weapons and we added a couple of characters. No, I mean, don't bother if you're going to do that.
Yeah, totally. Okay, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee.
Oh, God damn it. Look, everybody we have interviewed so far has either been American or Canadian, and they've all said coffee, and you are my best hope for a tea.
So you know what? It's because you made me choose one or the other. My actual routine is coffee first thing in the morning to get the engine started. Tea about an hour later, just to top things up because I prefer the flavor of tea. Tea all through the day, and then a cup of coffee at 2 p.m. and then tea for the rest of the day. So I mix it up.
So I'm saying on volume, that's tea.
Yeah, it is volume. Yeah, volume. I drink 1 to 2 cups of coffee a day and probably 5 cups of tea.
Okay, I'm taking that as a tea win. Chalk that one down.
Tea. Yeah. Okay. Fair dues. Fair dues on volume. Yes.
Okay, remote or in person?
In person.
In person. And we're going to go early mornings or late nights?
Oh, do you know what? That's changed through my life. So when I was young, it was late nights, definitely. And now that I'm nearly 50, it's mornings.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I win that one. Even my camp. Are you a late night or an early morning, Sam?
I suspect I still work best late at night, but I've got
Okay.
used to having early mornings because the boy started getting up at 4:30, and that broke me eventually. And then even now, 6 a.m. is about as late as I get. for that morning.
Oh gosh, that's early. That's too early. Yeah,
Oh mate,
yeah.
it really hurts, and my brain doesn't function great. So I can only do pottery kind of little things at that point in the morning. So it's me and Teddy time at that time of the morning, because neither of our brains are functioning that well, but we're up.
I think it is
That
it's kids that change you. It's like that's it. I've got 3 kids. They've all sequentially made me get up at like 6:30, 7 every morning. And now I'm a morning person, whereas before kids, I would happily have gone into work at 2 in the afternoon and worked till, midnight or whatever. That was definitely my sort of best flow time.
No, I can't do that. I'm asleep. I fall asleep so early. I'm an early morning person. Definitely. Okay, we're going to do one more. We're going to play stream, play, or avoid. So think
Okay.
of a game that you like to stream the most, that you like to play the most, and that you avoid the most.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So which game do you like to stream if you do?
So things I've been watching is probably I still watch quite a lot of Grand Theft Auto videos, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, GTA 5, because of the ingenious things people do to screw each other over. Like,
Yeah.
I saw one where someone carjacked somebody else, but they put a bomb in the car, and then when they got their car back, they blew them up and stuff like that. And I find
So
it
creative.
hilarious to
Love
watch.
it.
And then, sorry, we're gonna have to cut that.
What's happening?
The kid come in the room just asking me questions. It's like,
That's okay.
"No,
That's
what are
okay.
you doing? Told him. Anyway, sorry. Do you want to just do that one again?
Okay. I'll just do a quick like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know where to cut. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna do stream, play, or avoid now. So pick a game, one that you like to stream, one that you like to play, and one that you avoid.
Okay, so stream, it's still probably GTA 5. Like I watch a lot. I love the way it's the ingenious ways that people screw each other over. So
Yeah.
like I saw a guy, he like gets a tow truck, goes to tow somebody's car, tows it halfway up the road, but planted a load of C4 in it. And then the guy comes running out, gets the car off and thinks he's won, drives off in the car, and then he detonates the car. It's just, it's human nature at its best.
Yeah.
I think play, I've been really enjoying playing indie games mainly, and probably like things like Dredge, really like
Yeah.
Dredge,
Yeah, it's cool.
just things that are quite like story based but quite chilled. I'm like I say, at my age, I'm not a
Yeah.
skill gamer anymore. I don't have the dexterity to play those kind of games. So first person shooters are not a thing. And I think avoid it is like online first person shooters, because I don't have the reflexes I used to have. So I just go online and get owned by some 12-year-old kid on the other side of the world. And yeah, it's like it doesn't do a lot for a man's self-esteem to get killed by a 12-year-old within the first 30 seconds.
Oh, I get too scared playing them. I just worry the whole time. It's fun. I like to watch it. Oh my God, I just get so worried if I'm playing it. I end up coming out more stressed.
It's
It's
not
the,
it's
it's the,
not good for the ego.
no, it's
Oh,
not good for the ego. No, exactly. I really like driving games because I've kept I'm still quite good at those. So I play a lot of Forza and things like that.
yeah.
I'm really competitive in that. But the first person shooters, I can't play those. And Fortnite was probably the last time I played a first person shooter like that. And sorry, not first person shooter, but like a shooter. Uh,
Yeah.
and 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 it was yeah, I'm okay at Fortnite, but that's about it. But yeah, anything like Call of Duty or something like that, no, like it's not my thing.
I never even reached okay at Fortnite. I tried it, got riddled, got absolutely destroyed, and then noticed that the person who destroyed me had built the Taj Mahal while they were doing it. Like, I was
That,
like,
that
oh yeah, thanks for that.
that's
I'm
happened to me as
done
well,
on
where you get some kid who's just built this amazing thing to basically kill you with this like base of some sort, and I don't even build a base. I go and like hide behind every rock and tree I can find, and at the best I put like some piece of wood up to protect me. And every now and again I've been the last man. I probably in 2 years being the last person on the map like 3 times or something like that. So it's
Is that because you hit?
yeah, rubbish at it. I hid. Yeah, I hid
All the dead
until
bodies
there was
over
2
here.
people left.
Awesome. Well, there we go. We're done.
That was
Thank
really
you
good
so
fun.
much for
Thanks.
joining us, Ron. Really enjoyed that. Is there anything you want to plug?
Not really. No, I think the best thing is just keep an eye out for our game when it comes out, and things we'll be talking about once we've got something to show, and that's really it. So yeah,
I will
we
honestly
need
also.
people's support.
Oh yeah, oh, you have it from us. That's for sure. We'll follow
Yeah,
you on
super excited.
on Instagram.
Yes, on Instagram, that's a good place. So there's a Last Arrow Games Instagram, and there's also, I have an Instagram, but each one, if you subscribe to mine, you'll just get loads of oil painting because that's what I like doing. But if you the game, Last Arrow Games has its own, and that's the one, I think.
And
Awesome.
I will
Very
also
excited.
say your book, The Art of Direction, is wicked. And I know you can get that on Amazon as well.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's still going. It's
Yeah, I
bizarre.
know. It's
I
great. My
wrote
husband's got it on his bookshelf upstairs. He just swears
yeah,
by it.
I wrote it in COVID because I needed things to do in COVID to keep me sane. And I wrote that book, and it came out, I think it was the end of 2022. And then it's been adopted by a number of universities now as being part of their mandatory reading. So
That's
it kind of
insane.
it's kept going. I'd like to do another sort of revision of that though, because the industry, again, it's like been 4 years since I wrote that book. It's changed even more still. So I think at some point I'll have to talk to our publisher at DSP and see if they're up for doing another revised edition where I basically take a bunch of things I said and say, no, do it this way now.
That'd be great. Nice one. Okay. Thank you so much, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.
All right,
Fantastic.
take care. Thank you.
All right, take care. Cheers.
So that was Ron. Thanks as always to Ron. It always gives a good conversation, and it sounds like he's got something really great going on with Last Arrow. I can't wait to see what they've got coming out.
It's good to see him back in full dev.
Yes.
I mean, it was The Thing, I guess, was one of his last great ones, and he was a kid. Like I said, he was in his 20s when he did The Thing. So he's such a creative powerhouse, and he's always given a lot back as well, like by writing books on art direction, and he's always given
Oh,
load.
yeah.
So I'm wishing him the very best for Last Arrow. I have got my hopes are kind of through the roof a little bit for that one. I think it's going to be. I think they're capable of great things once it got up and running.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be gorgeous because Ron's on it and his art is amazing. So yeah, good luck. I can't wait to see things come along for that. Okay, we should wrap up.
Yeah.
What's your next conference, Sam?
Well, I think with everybody, it's going down to the seaside to develop. Right,
Yay!
we've got Ignite there this year as well. So any developers out there who are heading down to the sunshine of Brighton, make sure to sign up to Ignite as well. Anything that is XDev related on the development side, if you're a developer, will be covered in there. They're great sessions.
Oh yeah, we've got some really good sessions. We've got workshops, table topics, panels, main stage presentations. It's going to be a really good one. So yeah, if you're a developer developing your own games, your own IP, like we're focusing on you for this event. Like go on the XDS website, sign up. It's going to be a day and a half of great networking and great sessions.
Absolutely.
I'll be there as well.
Yeah,
I haven't been
sounds great.
developing ages. I'm well excited.
Well, there's anything, and you got the World Cup hitting it at the same time as well, right? You'll be there.
Yes.
You've got the semi-finals, I think, on the Tuesday. That's going to make for an interesting time, especially if England are anywhere near it.
Oh my God, I know. It's exciting, isn't it? Canada might be up there if we're
No,
lucky.
you
You
never know.
never know. Also, XDS tickets are still on sale. If
Yeah,
service provider tickets are all sold out, but if there's any developers that are interested in coming, tickets are on sale. Go get them. It's going to be a great year. We got
yeah.
our our speakers are all almost there and about finalized, so we're getting really excited about the program. If you have any questions on the landscape of external development for us or any of our next guests, you can feel free to go on our LinkedIn page and add some comments to any of the posts for the Made Together podcast, and we will get to them. And I think that's about it from us today.
That is. Well, thank you, Carla. I'm gonna
No,
literally
thank you.
melt away. I'm gonna melt away. This
Go.
this is so freaking hot.
Okay, well, good luck in the melting process.
Yes, well done. All right. Take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone. See you next time. Bye.